Hey bookworms.
I'm Book Mouse.
And I'm Book Kitty. And this is our BookNook.
This week we are going to do one of my picks, The Witches of New York by Ami McKay. It is a historical witchy book. It's about the witches of New York, but it's set in the 1880s, we decided?
1880s, 1890s.
I'm looking forward to talking about this one. This was a pleasant surprise when I pulled it off the bookshelf. It's got some interesting takes, so stick with us.
Those averse to magic need not apply. The Witches of New York. Now, being from New York, now I am not from New York City. Let's be very clear about this. There is an entire state besides New York City. I am from the western portion, about as far away from New York City as you can get without landing in Lake Erie. But it did hit a little spot, just, seeing your home place on the cover, which is pretty cool. I did not get to finish this book. It is currently on my DNF, though it is also still on my TBR. Because I was liking it. As you can see here, I got about a quarter of the way through. I did have a little extra time compared to normal to read this.
But you had a lot going on.
But I did have a death in the family this week. I lost my first grandparent. And at 32, I was incredibly lucky until this point. And while I'm handling it well, it's still a bit of a drain, and it's taking my mind and some of my emotional gas. So I wasn't able to finish the book by the time we're filming this. I will finish it. I do plan to finish it, but I have like 4 other books in progress, so I don't know when. I'm still trying to finish, what was it? Eat, Pray, Love. I'm still trying to finish Eat, Pray, Love. But
okay.
It is on my TBR still.
Of what you got to read, what was your impression?
What I got to read, I noticed that there is a lot of description, which in my perspective is both good and bad.
Okay.
It's good because you have a lot to work with. You can clearly picture what the author's trying to portray, the scenery, really setting the setting for those of us who don't know what it was like in the 1880s, 1890s. And clearly she did her research. She clearly did her research. I mean, there were things in there I had to Google. And they're like old tonics and old solutions for medical problems, or seances. Seances were all the rage among the ladies of society in New York. But yet, between then and now, somehow it became very passé. And people were just like, oh, what do you...
Yeah.
And now it's starting to come back into the mainstream a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed a lot of character growth, character development, I should say. There was many, many characters. And when I say characters, as far as paranormals go, and I stick to paranormal most of the time, I've never seen a book that included animal familiars, which is the best way I can describe Purdue.
That is Purdue.
Unseen creatures and ghosts as actual characters. They're fleshed out as characters, at least from what I saw at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. And
the ghosts have their own sections that are narrated by them.
Oh yeah.
Or from their point of view.
There's a whole cast of ghosts in the hotel. And
it's
they have
incredible.
They have their identities.
Mm-hmm.
And they factor in the story.
Yes. And I thought that was really creative and a little bit unique. But getting back to what I said so I can address it, I did say that the description was on a good note and a bad note. For me, it's a bad note just because it does remind me a little bit of Stephen King. There's a little bit, maybe too much, but I think in this case she gets away with it well because it is historical and you are trying to really set the setting more so than just a town you can relate to in Maine,
Yeah.
Whereas Stephen King doesn't really need to describe a town you can relate to. We all can picture a town you can relate to, and stuff like that. So I don't know. I read maybe 10 or 12 pages earlier, end of last week. And then I got really, really busy. That video we did last week really took a lot of time in the editing. So I hope y'all appreciate it. Because I put a lot of work into that. But I was telling my partner last night, before I went to go read this, try and read it the rest of the way. I told him, I said, I don't know why, but I'm feeling some sort of resistance toward reading this book. I said, the little bit that I read so far I enjoyed. I want to know more about the story, but I'm feeling some sort of resistance, and I couldn't explain why. I still can't explain why I was feeling that resistance. Once I got back into reading it, I felt better, though I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish it in time. Yeah. But I did the best I could before my eyes got blurry. I did not make it very far just because of how much is in the book. These pages are thin, too. Like, the pages themselves, I go to turn a page, and I grab two, and it feels like a full page, like a normal page. Yeah. So, like, they're, like, half-thickness pages or something, and there's, like, over 400 of them. So there's a lot packed into this, which is great if I wasn't in the mood I was in this week.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned this before. Sometimes you have to be in the right frame of mind for a certain book.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be in the right frame of mind for a book, period. And that happens.
And it's funny because normally when I'm upset, and I think a lot of us can relate to this, when I'm upset, usually reading helps. I'm able to escape. I'm able to put my mind elsewhere so that my grief can work in the background. This week that didn't work for me. But I do want to mention before we forget that it is an international bestseller.
Yes.
So despite what I'm saying because of my mood when I read this or tried to read it, it is clearly worth it.
And she has other books that she's written.
It is 1880. The spring of 1880.
So, and she has other books that she's written that have been bestsellers.
The Virgin Cure and The Birth House are two of her critically acclaimed novels.
So
she's won awards in Canada. She's won awards in Dublin. Was raised in Indiana and lives in Nova Scotia. Wow. I don't know why you want to go to Canada. I mean, Canada is great in theory, but it's so damn cold.
Well, I have to admit that
you got to read the whole thing.
I did, and I actually really liked this book. The character development really, associating with you, I'm starting to pay attention to things that normally I just read a book to read it. But now I'm paying attention.
Starting to read it critically. Oh my God.
Yes. I'm starting to look at the turns of phrases. I'm starting to look at what the character does and does it make sense that a character would do this? Or, stuff like that. The book starts with two of the three main characters. It starts with Eleanor and Adelaide. And right off the bat, they're different. They are single, a little bit older, but they are single. They own a business on their own, and they're running it successfully. And they eventually tell you that they're witches, but they're open.
And they have a place in lady society.
They do.
Yeah.
But they're open-minded. They're very open-minded. They're very forward-thinking. And then when you think about it, too, poor Adelaide. This is a woman in 1880s who is disfigured. She was
attacked.
She was attacked. She was attacked and literally had acid thrown in her face. And
because the woman who did it was calling her a witch. Yeah.
And she lost her eye. And so she literally wears the mask with one eye cut in it.
Or a hat with like a veil that covers it, and everybody wants to know what's hiding behind it.
Oh, yeah. Already, for this society, they have 3 strikes against them. They're single, they're running a business, and they're not hiding who they are. They advertise that they are witches for women.
Those averse to magic need not apply.
And they put that in their ad, which is how the third character, Beatrice, comes into play. And I just really like that these are not perfect characters. That was the other thing that caught me. Adelaide and Eleanor live together, but
at the shop,
the shop
and the house are the same.
Shop's below and the house is above, which was common in that time. Mm-hmm. But it's not the perfect, saccharine, sweet relationship. They argue. They get mad at each other. Adelaide storms off at one point
and gets drunk on absinthe
and doesn't come home till the next morning.
Yeah.
And Eleanor, she's dealing with emotions.
They're all flawed.
They're all
and
flawed,
I think that's
and
the
they're
important
human.
part.
They're human. I love that. I've said this before. I like it when the characters are relatable, and a perfect character is not relatable. It's just not. And a perfect relationship is not relatable to me. So seeing these women struggle, seeing what they're dealing with in society, the guff they're taking, the book is, and Book Kitty actually pointed out my hypocrisy.
When she showed me the book in the first place, when she brought it over and said, "Here, it's your turn to read this," she went, "Look, it's even got all these little articles. It's got songs and poems and advertisements from the newspaper
And little clip outs.
And it wasn't until I was reading it like 2 nights ago, and I was like, "Wait a second. All the things you said were awesome about this book are the things you said you hated about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter."
I can't explain it. I can't explain it. It just...
It might have just caught you in the right mood.
And it may have.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the articles are like things that the girls are seeing in the Evening Star. A flyer that a pastor's women's group is walking through the park and forcibly handing out to people.
Decrying witches.
Decrying witches and forward women. It's not just witches.
It's not just witches.
There's pastors in this time that were talking about forward women bringing men down. Women who have the gall to want to read something besides their Bible. And I like seeing their reactions to what they're dealing with and how they brace themselves to keep going in the face of this. There are demons.
The demons are manipulating the Christians, not the witches.
Right. In fact, I think it specifically states by the one demon how much he loathes witches and how much the witches oppose demons' works and how frustrating it is for them.
It's a complete polarity reversal.
It is.
The demon is manipulating the church because they're so easy and charismatic and already have a thing against witches, when in reality the witches aren't on his side. Like, they are actually trying to do good for people.
Right. And
I like that, because a lot of books paint witches in a very bad light.
Right.
And some of it do it in fun ways, like Salem or the new Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Like, they do it in a fun way. But I'm really sick of that trope. I'm really sick of witches being portrayed as evil or dark or easily manipulated
or dopey.
Dopey.
I'm sorry. I've seen some recently where the witches are dopey little Mad Hatters running around.
Guess what? All the people I know that identify as witches, and I'm going to specifically talk about the women that I know that identify as witches, are all strong, independent women who want nothing more than the best for the people around them. And for the world as a whole.
Which is these women.
And there's very rarely stories told about real women who are witches. So if we ever talk about a video of tropes that we are sick of, this is one of them. Well, not this, but that trope is one of them. Using demons and the devil to align with witches is really a trope I'm really getting sick of. It works when it's done right, because I can separate myself from a book. You know, I don't have to... It doesn't have to be perfect or set just for me, but it's got to be done right, and it's just done too often. Try something else, people. Try something else.
Well, Amy did.
Yes, Amy did.
Amy
Go,
did.
Amy.
I will admit, I really did fall into this one.
I probably would have too.
Yeah,
It has all the elements I normally enjoy.
It did, and you see Beatrice grow. She starts out as this timid.
She's so shy and
She's
cute.
so shy, and in the end, she becomes such this strong woman who knows her own mind.
I mean, that's kind of foreshadowed by the fairies.
It is, and the fairies are so cute.
No, this dream must be perfect.
I love Twitch. I love Twitch. So, I think, in all honesty, this is a wonderful book. I was amazed, but this is integrating what's going on in the world with what's going on with these women, with like an underlying like the world beneath.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she did a really good job at it. And she even incorporates big things that are happening in society.
Yeah.
So
The building of the Great Bridge.
The Great Bridge. Egyptology was the rage in the 1800s. A lot of tombs were being found left and right, and artifacts, they were ransacking Egypt. Artifacts were going out all over the world, and in this story, the Great Obelisk is actually...
Also known as Cleopatra's Needle.
Yes, is arriving in New York City to be set up.
Hell, Lady Liberty's torch is the only thing they can view.
Yeah, because it's not put
got.
together yet. So it's just, I found it interesting that they bring in world events and how these world events were affecting society in whole, and witches in particular.
Really giving you a secure idea of where and when this story is taking place.
Yes. And I'm like, kudos. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I am not sorry. Kudos to Ami McKay. I love this book.
And you know what? I only got a quarter of the way through it, but just from the amount that I read, and where I see the book going, I am comfortable enough to give it 4 paws up. Thanks for joining us for Witches of New York.
Join us for our next video where we are going to have an open discussion. Basically a bookish free-for-all.
It kind of just happened. Don't forget to check the description below where I will list where you can find Witches of New York by Ami McKay, both in new and used forms, as well as where to find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and Patreon.
You can become a patron of our BookNook for as little as $3.
Join us for all sorts of fun shit, like early access to our weekly videos,
behind-the-scenes footage, shout-outs, and bloopers,
and become a patron at any tier, and you'll gain access to our exclusive live chat community.
As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you always know when we post new content.
We post videos weekly, Monday at 2 p.m. Central, as well as sometimes on Tuesdays and Thursdays when we have just that little bit extra to say.
This has been Book Mouse.
And I'm Book Kitty, and we are now signing off.